This is about the Brethren and Honesty, and looking at Richard Peckham's article. Bruce McConaughey said anything with intent to deceive was a lie. Let's check it out. Talks about, gives some scriptures here that condemn being dishonest heavily in the Doctrine and Covenants, being cast down to hell or thrust down to hell and that sort of thing. There's a talk by Marvin J. Ashton. He goes so far as to say that not giving all the details, leading someone to, believe something that is not true by omission is tantamount to the same thing. However, Boyd K. Packer, teaching the church educational system, the CES people, has said things like, some things that are true are not very useful. Joseph Smith starts the controversy here. Joseph Smith not telling the truth about what's called polygamy, plural marriage, celestial marriage, or spiritual wife system. In 1844, after he'd been at it for quite a while, shall we say, he gave this sermon in Nauvoo, saying, William Law has gone to Carthage and swore that I told him that I was guilty of adultery, this spiritual wifism. Why a man dares not to speak or wink for fear of being accused of this. A man asked me whether the commandment was given that a man may have 7 wives, and now William Law has charged me with adultery. I am innocent of all these charges, and you can bear witness of my innocence, for you know me yourselves. What a thing it is for a man to be accused of committing adultery and having 7 wives, when I can only find 1. I am the same man and as innocent as I was 14 years ago, and I can prove them all perjurers. Okay. This goes on to recount how, of course, Joseph Smith had maybe about 34 women that he had supposedly married, of course, by then, and other folks say he was involved with a lot more women. So since it was completely illegal, they weren't wives, it was concubinage, and it's kind of a euphemism for the church to call it marriages, plural marriages, and that sort of thing. Family Search affirms a lot of these. About a dozen of these gals were currently married to someone else. Some LDS apologists try to say, well, he wasn't having intimate relations with them. Of course, many women testified that he did, but even if he didn't, with all these married gals, then if they're being sealed to him, then so their husbands have no one to take to the celestial kingdom, so they got to go out and catch some other girl. That's really pretty rough situation. At any rate, Joseph Smith kept almost all of his polygamous marriages secret from Emma, it says. She didn't find out, supposedly, until he had about 20 women. As I was saying, some people testify of many, many more. Such as Joseph Jackson said Joseph Smith told him, and he was really close to Joseph Smith. He was in the Council of 50, the government of the Kingdom of God. He was not a member of the church. He said Joseph bragged about 400 women to him. Of course, why should we believe that? Joseph Smith is so honest. At any rate, the Relief Society was supposed to check and make sure women weren't being seduced, it says there. Alright, among the women that were in that organization, a couple of them were already Joseph Smith's secret wives, or concubines more accurately. He had over 20 women by then, including, that was in 1842. He organized the Relief Society, I believe on St. Patrick's Day, the day after he became a Master Mason. That's kind of interesting. There's some Masonic language regarding the the Relief Society, that if you know the language, you'll understand it. If you do some reading on Royal Archmasonry. Okay, so Emma was not privy to some of this for a while. Okay, and here's a business about if any of you espouse a virgin, you have to get consent, this guy says. Well, actually, Section 132 exempts Joseph Smith from getting Emma's permission. So he's wrong about that one. Whoever has the keys of the priesthood can have as many women as he wants, it says. And there's not a darn thing she can do about it. If she doesn't like it, she'll be destroyed. Now, if you're just a peon, well, then you have to get your wife's consent, plus the brethren's. So, yeah, Joseph Smith was involved with a lot of girls, and the first girl, Fanny Alger, that was 1833. She was an orphan girl living at their house, and he got her pregnant. That's 3 years before even the Elijah thing in the temple, not to mention, Section 132, which he never submitted to the church. What he did submit, though, was the revelation saying it's adultery to have more than one wife. And let me find that one. Alright, so there it says it was in Doctrine and Covenants on page 330. It used to be in the Book of Commandments, saying, we declare that we believe that one man should have one wife and one woman but one husband. Yeah, they go on to say anything else is adultery. They, meaning Joseph Smith. Also in here we've got Hyrum Smith sending a letter to the brethren and telling them that any rumors about polygamy are wrong and it's false doctrine. For there is no such doctrine taught here, and it can be practiced. And anybody that is culpable will stand a chance of being brought before the High Council and loses license and membership also. So, and when did Hiram send that out? March 15th, 1844. Denying it. He had at least 5 women himself by then, and according to Joseph Jackson, he was offering to hook him up with some of his favorites. Joseph Jackson said no. Here's John Taylor. Yeah, he was on a mission, and he publicly denied and wrote, a denial that there was. We declare and we believe that one man. Okay, he published that, what I just read and so forth. And anyway, so he was in Europe on a mission, and he denied polygamy. He had a dozen wives himself at the time, by the way. John Taylor became president of the church. We got some history going here. Here's just a little review of Gordon B. Hinckley's public statements. So, yeah, in the San Francisco Chronicle, and then denying the Adam, not Adam, but the as God once was, man can become business. And then he had a spokesman say, oh, he was misquoted, but then they give the transcript, and clearly it wasn't. So, he's asked, for instance, don't Mormons believe that God was once a man? And President Hinckley says, I wouldn't say that. There was a little couplet coined, as man is as God once was. He finishes the couplet. He said, that gets into some pretty deep theology. We don't know very much about that. And then we've got on whether the church still believes it, and he says, I don't know that we teach it. I don't know that we emphasize it. I understand the philosophical background behind it, but I don't know a lot about it. I don't think others know a lot about it. Well, okay, that was just part of it. Here it's just got a couple more sentences in there. It says, I haven't heard it discussed for a long time in public discourse. I don't know. I don't know all the circumstances under which the statement was made. And he goes on and says, I understand the philosophical background. I don't know much about it, and I don't know that others know about it. Of course, it was being taught in the priesthood manual at the time, and goes on to document this here, and shows that, and along as well as Joseph Smith talking about it, Joseph Fielding Smith, Brigham Young, Bruce McConkie, teachings of the Presidents of the Church, manuals. So it says either he just doesn't know what the church is teaching. He taught it himself, or he's not telling the truth. So I guess figure that one out, huh? Similarly with polygamy, he says on Larry King Live that it's not, he doesn't think it's doctrinal. Of course, both of those doctrines are all through section 132 as well. That you can become a god, and that, that is the doctrine of polygamy's in there. So they're clearly there. I just recently read it. And becoming gods is there multiple times. So we don't teach 132 anymore?
I condemn it, yes, as a practice, because I think it is not doctrinal, it is not legal. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not bear false witness. It is not doctrinal. Thou shalt not bear false witness. It is not doctrinal. Thou shalt not bear false witness.
He says here, notice that Brother Hinckley specifically said, I don't know that we teach it. At the same time, the church was publishing a lesson manual teaching it. Either he was lying or he was woefully ignorant of what is being taught in the church, is what it says here. On the polygamy thing, it was on a very restricted basis and maybe guarded words he used. Well, it's because it was a secret doctrine. It wasn't restricted among the leading brethren. They had many wives, and some of them inherited many of Joseph's, like so much property. One of the reasons for that was that women were marrying into godhood. You had to marry a guy that was going to become a god, or be sealed to him, even if you were a man, which is what John D. Lee did when he was sealed to Brigham Young. Here he mentions the church manual, teachings of the presidents, and the one about Brigham Young. Although he's a huge polygamist, the portrayal of his life it never even mentions him being into polygamy at all here. So it's completely deceptive, is what he's saying. Including the summary of his life. Doesn't mention his 52 wives, his 15 divorces, or separations, or 55 children. If that's a little over one per wife, how is that multiplying and replenishing the earth and raising up seed to the Lord, as it says in the book of Jacob? Now see how honest Gordon is about the DNA issue.
The findings of geneticists. It's also archaeologically impossible. It's also historically and linguistically impossible.
This DNA evidence had been firmly established and widely published long before the 2002 Winter Olympics focused the world's attention on Utah religion. Gordon B. Hinckley is the current president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and is believed by his followers to be a modern-day living prophet. It was in just such an interview that in January 2002, a German reporter asked President Hinckley about the DNA evidence facing his religion.
What will be your position when DNA analysis will show that in the history never had been an immigration from Israel to North America? It could be that the scientists will find it out.
It hasn't happened. That hasn't been determined yet. All I can say is that's speculative. No one really knows the answer to that, not at this point.
Well, of course he's wrong. First of all, he's factually wrong. I mean, it's been fairly well shown. I mean, that's what we're talking about here. And by that time, there were a lot of papers written on it. I would find it very incredible to know that he wasn't familiar with it.
One of the frustrating things for me as a Mormon scholar is the general Mormon approach to problems with the Book of Mormon, and that is, more often than not, to pretend like they don't exist.
D&C 132, Revelation and the principle of plural marriage. And if ye have 10 virgins given unto him by this law, ye cannot commit adultery, they belong to him. Then shall they be gods, because they have no end. It's doctrinal and taught. Tell us something true.
I do not know what the future holds.
It's a lot of don't knows for a prophet.